Oliver Kamm, a writer with The Times. You'll not be joining us on the march tomorrow, I guess, Oliver?
That is right, Mr. Galloway. And while it's true that you're not my greatest admirer and I'm not your greatest admirer, the reason we haven't spoken recently is that you refused to appear on the BBC programmes with me, and so it's a pleasure to talk to you now.
Well, I wouldn't say pleasure, but you're nonetheless welcome to express your point of view, and perhaps you'd like to do so. Why won't you be there tomorrow?
Because I think that the demonstration tomorrow fails to acknowledge that any democratic government has a right to protect its civilians from armed attack by a non-state actor, which is what Israel is doing. I'm not convinced that those who are on the march tomorrow acknowledge that Israel is a sovereign democratic state with a right to protect its civilians, nor am I convinced that you do, Mr. Galloway.
And do you think that it is protecting its civilians by this action? I'm really asking whether you think this is working and likely to work.
That's an open question. I certainly think that no democratic government can long allow a non-state actor to fire hundreds of rockets into its towns and not, for that democratic government not to retaliate. Israel has adopted the policy of trading land for peace by withdrawing from Lebanon in 2000 and withdrawing from Gaza in 2005 and dismantling its settlements. And yet the interlocutor that it has on the Palestinian side, in this case Hamas, or Hezbollah in the case of its withdrawal from Lebanon, has not acceded to that deal. It has not provided peace, and that simply doesn't allow for the end state that I wish to see, a Pacific two-state territorial accommodation between Israel and the Palestinians.
I was really asking you, and you said it was an open question. Why don't you hazard a guess at an answer? Do you think it's going to work?
I think it will set Hamas back in the same way that Israel retaliating against Hezbollah in the early 1990s stopped Hezbollah from its suicide terrorism.
Didn't exactly set Hezbollah back 2 summers ago, did it?
In 2006, the incursion against Hezbollah in Lebanon was very badly planned, and it certainly was a tactical mistake that caused Israel significant diplomatic damage. In this case, I think that Israel has conducted its campaign much better. There's been much less...
Well, you say that, Mr. Kamm, and you like to, because you're a banker, of course, and we can all trust the word of bankers. You say that, but the United Nations, who may be liars, of course, they say that 100 of the 400 dead are innocent civilians. Is that not likely to do some diplomatic damage?
Israel has gone to some lengths to protect civilians. The problem is...
How many would have died then if it had not gone to those lengths?
By my estimation, from the information that I received...
Oh, no. We'll not necessarily place your information above the information of the United Nations, will we?
I have United Nations interlocutors on the ground, Mr. Galloway. I was just correcting you.
Well, I know I know that you're a very important man with all sorts of interlocutors, a word you've used 3 times in the interview so far. But the United Nations says that 100 out of 400 who have been killed are innocent civilians. That's 1 in 4. That's 25%, though I know you can count because you are, as I said, a banker. So I'm just asking you, how many more would have died if Israel had not been taking such extraordinary steps to try and protect innocent civilians?
Because I'm not actually sure why you're so hung up on the question of banking, Mr. Galloway.
Well, I think because they're a bunch of thieves, Mr. Kamm. I think because they've bankrupted the country. I think because they've brought the world to the brink of ruin. That's kind of why I'm hung up about bankers.
Yeah, what's this got to do with Gaza and Israel, Mr. Galloway?
Well, I just think that people should know everyone's background, don't you? After all, you're forever, indeed obsessively, turning over mine.
Sorry, what background is that, Mr. Galloway?
Well, Oliver, let's go back then to my question, which I've now asked 3 times and will ask for a 4th time. The United Nations say that 100 of the 400 killed have been innocent civilians. You say that Israel has taken extraordinary steps to protect the lives of innocent civilians. I'm asking you, if they had not taken those steps, what level of civilian casualties might we now be looking at?
Well, the question is purely hypothetical, Mr. Galloway, because Israel does take steps to protect civilians from harm.
And 100 have died.
Mr. Galloway, do you want my opinion, or are you going to tell me what my...
Well, this is a discussion, Mr. Kamm. You were not my choice to be on the show, but you are a guest on the show. It's written here, G-U-E-S-T. So you'll either conduct a conversation with me, or we'll say goodnight. Which would you prefer?
Mr. Galloway, you were told to have me because you have in the past declined to appear...
Don't flatter yourself. There's nobody in this radio station has ever heard of you. You're a complete nobody, a banker, a real banker. Nobody has ever heard of you. So don't flatter yourself that I was